Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 69 on Tuesday the 25th of October 2016. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew.
Lots to talk about tonight, mate.
Lots of follow-up. Should we get going straight away?
Yes.
We'll go straight into it, and we discussed this last week. I think it was last week.
We've discussed this every week since the dawn of time, I think.
Well, this particular aspect of Dieselgate, but the judge has actually approved the $14.7 billion deal with Volkswagen paying back or buying back cars or offering to buy back cars and all the rest of it, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. So that was approved today. So that's hot off the press.
So that's the deal with the US Justice Department, Federal Trade Commission and the state of California.
Yes.
Cool. Because, and that's great for most of the cars, which are getting fixed and all sorts of fun stuff like that, but the 3-litre V6 TDIs, every single fix has been turned down. So basically, all Audi can do now, because whatever the regulators are in... I'm sorry, this road and track page is not letting me into the story, so I can't tell you. I would dearly love to tell the listeners who it is that has turned it down. But it's finally decided to get rid of the complete cover-over advert, which it decided to bring up. There we are. 25,000 vehicles.
You're right there, Alan.
I'm fine. It's okay, it'll be your turn in a bit.
Yes, but I won't be cross with the webpage, I'll just be cross.
Oh, it did the same to me earlier on. Should have known. So yes, 25,000 3-litre TDI vehicles are basically going to have to be bought back, because there is no fix that Volkswagen Group can agree with the appropriate US regulators. So the cars in question are going to be the Audi Q5, the Audi Q7, the Volkswagen Touareg, and the Porsche Cayenne. And of course, this only relates to a North American car. So again, another one in North America there. So a load of stuff seems to have been settled this week, whether financially or just basically at least what course of action is going to be.
Well, this actually saves Volkswagen some money.
It probably is easier, actually.
Because they don't have to pay for the fix, because they can't do a fix. So they would have to agree a deal to buy back the cars from customers anyway.
Yeah,
because it would most likely mirror the 2-litre agreement that's just been signed.
I would imagine so.
So of which, let's be realistic, nearly every Volkswagen car owner is going to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because they've got, was it up to 2 years or something ridiculous from this date?
I actually don't mention it that often, but I have a load of friends in the US.
You have friends?
I actually have friends, yeah, one or two of them. They're internet people, don't worry.
Oh, obviously.
But they are ex-TDI club members or current TDI club members. And one of them was saying that just his Passat, it just... Basically, there's so many little bits going wrong with it, plus all the Dieselgate stuff. He wasn't sure what to do. But there's so many other niggles that aren't related to Dieselgate, but silly electrical stuff, that basically he's at the stage of, I wanted to keep this car, but you can basically buy it back from me now. It's becoming too much hassle. Nothing to do with the diesel part of it, or the engine, but it's to do with all the other stuff. So I can tell you that is sort of hitting the ground with some of the concerns.
But what it does mean is that that 25,000 number of 3-litre vehicles, they are just going to sit in a giant parking lot and rot, because they cannot come up with a fix. They cannot do anything else with them. They cannot sell them on. They cannot farm them off to a third world market or anything like that, which would probably be something they'd try to do just to recoup some cash back on it.
Well, from an environmental point of view, basically, they're being made to. There's nothing really they can do other than basically crush them.
Yeah, take off the parts that are not connected with the diesel engine, and
just crush them, which of course is well known. Is good economic sense, good ecological sense, as we all know. So yeah, there we go. I'm sure someone's happy.
Yes. Right.
Yes. Let's move on.
Next one.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this last week or the week before, but Nissan have finally completed the acquisition of Mitsubishi Motors with their 34% stake. I was expecting the CEO to come and tell us, Carlos Ghosn.
I think so. That's the closest I've come up with.
Carlos Ghosn to have this master plan that he claimed he was going to have, but that's not come out yet. But there has been lots of the use of rebuilding trust and other things, and it's
synergies is used. Synergies is used in a quotation there as well. It's always a good sign if the synergies.
Yes. Dear, they think outside boxes, and was the sky blue?
Yes, but basically, Mitsubishi Motors now becomes part of the Renault-Nissan alliance.
Yes.
So that's a good thing.
But it got me thinking, because people have talked about trust and everything, and as we've seen with Volkswagen, it's not monstrously dented sales, and Toyota have recovered from the problems they had that weren't years ago.
Yeah, and Audi as well. To be honest.
Yeah. So this whole thing of trust and all the rest of it, I wonder if there's another industry that is affected in such a short period of time, or a company is forgiven, or appears to be forgiven so quickly, as appears to happen in the car industry.
There's very strong brand loyalty, in part, and as well as that, if you make good products, then that gets around. But yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. Also, car makers failing is economically very bad. So I think that there is always a balance there, where the investments are so high, both from the state as well as from shareholders and stuff in the facilities around manufacturing cars.
Well, we're seeing it now, aren't we?
Yeah, basically
after
people
Brexit, how nervous people are getting because of the knock-on. It's not just the, if it's take Sunderland for example, the 7,500 people that's employed in Sunderland. There are all the ancillary businesses that are directly connected with the motoring industry, and then there's all the service industries that deal with the people who are, it's such a massive
including
effect.
Myself on occasion.
Yeah, it's such a massive effect that to a community and to an industry that obviously governments make big and major efforts to make sure that people don't collapse and disappear. So
exactly, and indeed, following neatly on from that, Nissan is looking to make a decision about where the new Qashqai model is going to be built in the next month or so. Of course, currently the Qashqai is built in Sunderland, so I'm sure that came up in his discussion with Prime Minister Theresa May the other week. So that decision is coming at some point in the not too distant future, and I think that will, I think that will tell us a lot one way or the other which way sounds good. Which way Nissan?
Yeah, it depends on whether they believe what the government's said, either because obviously no government can make a guarantee that they're going to stay in the single market or anything like that, and they cannot guarantee that there won't be a levy or an import-export tax into and out of the EU. However, it all depends on whether the government or Theresa May has reassured Gone that if there are these levies, the government will offset that in some way.
Yeah,
because that's the key. If they can't be offset, then obviously, as we've discussed many times, a company is not going to sit there and prop up for the good of its own heart.
No.
It is going to go somewhere where it can continue to make the profit it needs to make to satisfy shareholders and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and I've commented before that Nissan is a company that doesn't renew meeting chairs in order to keep the cost of the cars down, cost of a car down. So they are incredibly conscious of that kind of thing. Incredibly sensitive to that kind of thing. So let's see. I mean, I'm hoping for Sunderland, to be honest.
Oh, I am, absolutely, because it would be devastating to the area. Forgetting politics.
Devastating to most stuff. If you think about it, was it a third of all cars built in Britain are built in that one factory? Over 80% are exported. I mean, so... Because
if Nissan go, others will go, and maybe not actively move, but they will not. They will do what Nissan could do, which is not build here and just choose to move new models elsewhere. So it won't be a sudden cliff drop. It'll be over stages.
And I'm sure Toyota and Burniston factory and stuff is things like that. But there's so many companies manufacturing in the UK and BMW and engines and all these kind of things. Anyway, shall we move back to emissions?
Why not? It's been a little while.
It's been about 5 minutes or so, I think.
Well, in the whole Dieselgatey thing, if you remember, we mentioned about how the German authority accused Fiat of using inappropriate software that effectively was a defeat device. Now, FCA's senior the chief technical officer, who is Harold Wester, actually was up in front of the EU or the European Parliament committee into emission measurements, which is apparently known as EMIS, EMIS, and he said, and I'm going to quote here because I think this is quite interesting.
This is great.
Contrary to allegations, 500X does not deactivate its emission control system, but uses control strategies which modulate the emission control system solely to protect the integrity of the engine and the safety of the vehicle occupants in accordance with applicable regulations.
Is it worth quoting the end of the quotation that's on the paragraph 4, which is where he says 500X meets the relevant Euro 6 limit in the regulatory NEDC test and does not detect that it is being tested. So it doesn't detect, as well as what you've just said, which is like, yeah, well, absolutely, it uses strategies, but it doesn't actually detect that it's being tested.
It only uses control strategies.
Yes.
Obviously, not just us picked up on that little phrase.
No.
And they've been asked to clarify technical and legal definitions.
I missed that bit.
Around this justification of such a modulation system.
I see that.
But you can read all this in the article that will be in the show notes, which is from Autocar.
Yeah.
This one is not going to bed at all, so we'll have to see how it comes out, actually.
He's also been up before. He's also been up before the French regulators as well, because they wanted to know about the 500X emitting up to 15 times more pollutants essentially than it emits during the test cycle. So, which is quite.
staying with emissions, Alan. And
staying with emissions, yeah. And I promise that this is oh gosh, this is the last follow-up.
Yes.
We're still only on the follow-up. I thought we were getting to the mid-show, but not yet. There is a story. There has been a story in The Guardian from earlier in the week. Oh, from yesterday, Monday the 24th, about the fact that it's essentially politicians rather than bureaucrats and experts who are trying to set some of the vehicle emissions standards in Europe. And according to The Guardian, campaigners from a group called, I have now lost their name, Transport and Environment, who describe themselves as a campaign group, are trying to campaign for a particulate filter for petrol vehicles. In there, they're reckoning that a €25 or £300 filter could, £22 filter could drastically cut the particulate matter from petrol engines.
Is this the same one that Volkswagen have just announced will be fitting to all petrol cars, do you think?
It does sound a lot like it, but it won't be mandatory yet.
No, I understand it won't be mandatory, but...
So that's the first part. The second part of the story is about how, as a result of that and some other legal and political wrangling, most EU member states support raising the pollution standard for petrol cars to about 50% above what was set down in the Euro 6 regulations.
Now, is that, do you think, because it's being declared that nothing can hit it now, and they're going to, and because people are no longer going to be allowed to use, or be able to, because it's going to be real-world testing that's coming in, and so. Everyone has shown with real-world situations the particulate emission MPG, everything is lower than, or is worse than expected. Sorry, not lower. Is worse than expected.
I don't think so, because I think they're having to keep the same testing for the regulations are written against. I think if you had to go for the real world testing, you would need to reword and rewrite the regulations.
Because I thought that's what they were trying to do.
They're probably trying to do, but I've not seen it. I can't see it anywhere in this article about that this week. But yeah, I believe they will do that, and they'll need to revise. They'll probably have a standard test and real world levels. But it's trying to work out what the real world equivalence of the test standard would be in a reasonable and reachable manner. What's realistic.
Yeah, because there's only that company, or we've only been able to find news items from that company in the UK that have a specific route, and they've got things plugged into the exhaust, and they drive it round a set route.
Yeah. At roughly the same time of day, etc.
Yeah, they're trying to keep it as consistent as possible, but because as soon as you put real world into it, that's where all the problems happen. Yeah. Etc. Etc.
And of course, Citroën and PSA Group, Peugeot Citroën DS, are trying to publish real world figures as well as official figures. Data. Worth mentioning that as well. People are trying to move towards that. But yeah, it's quite an interesting article. It's quite long, relatively long, but there's quite a bit packed into it about this and how they're saying that there's the chance of there being a Petrolgate scandal in the making. But that, of course, was...
Well, not if the emissions are increased. It won't be.
No, well, exactly. That's it. Yeah, so it's basically the people at Campaign Group are most worried that the EU's attempts to improve air quality are being, here I quote, bent to the will of the automotive industry. Or that decisions are made, but they're made by the right people.
Yep. Should we move on to new news?
Oh, please. Oh, great! That was my cue, wasn't it?
It's okay. It's been very smooth.
Nice. I know. It was nice during the week.
First of all, you were swearing at, or you didn't actually swear, but you got cross about a website. No, there's no camp siren yet. Give it time.
You're doing really well. Yeah. So first up was news last week, just after we recorded last week, that every new Tesla will come with all the appropriate hardware to be fully autonomous. By fully, I mean level 5, because we try and be good and keep to the appropriate levels of measures of these things. And that includes the upcoming Model 3, by the way. But yes, it will have all the appropriate hardware for level 5 autonomy. I mean, it won't be activated unless you pay extra, and even then, not all of it will be activated. Some of it will be activated, maybe, but at some point, as yet undefined in the future, that hardware could or couldn't be, depending on how much you've paid them, able to handle level 5 autonomy.
This is once they've got approval as well.
Oh, yes, once it's got approval and once they've actually tested it. So they've fitted the stuff that they haven't necessarily tested and certainly haven't had approved in order for the car to drive itself, but you can't use it. You've just got to lug it around unless you pay extra money later. But you don't know how much that's going to be or when later's actually going to be. So that's good. And
an awful lot of people got excited about that, Alan.
Well, an awful lot of people reacted in the same way I've just reacted. But some people, but other people also got really excited and said that this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. This was absolutely wonderful, and many other things like that. Of course, that got everyone excited, so people didn't really notice or point out the fact that people who have pre-ordered or reserved their Tesla Model 3s may possibly get them at some point, but they were knocking them back a little bit. But yeah.
A little bit.
I can't find the exact number, so I was trying to be good.
I think it's 2018 now.
It is now, yes, basically. But that's what they were saying all along.
No, they weren't. They've put a big line through, haven't they, on their website saying it was 2017, but we actually mean 2018 now.
Yes. Well, we're going to start making them in 2017. So yeah. So it's been an interesting week, Tesla, because that wasn't really all, was it?
Well, no, because in discussing the new hardware or the hardware-enabled vehicles.
Yeah.
It sort of got a bit hidden about how actually new cars are not going to come with the same features that autopilot comes with now.
Yes, that was the next thing. So actually it's going to be a little bit of a step back. Probably. But nobody really knows either.
Well...
In Tesla's defence, they haven't actually really told anyone what it will come with, so you don't know whether it's going to be a step back or not.
I thought that they had discussed that it won't have lane departure, it won't have the adaptive cruise control, it won't have... what else was it? I'm trying to...
Wait, it actually won't have all that stuff?
Yeah.
That's...
You know, the bits that people want the Tesla for.
You mean the bits that other cars have?
Yeah, okay, here it is, sorry. The crucial bit of the announcement, this is in a Bloomberg article, which will be in the show notes. It temporarily lacks certain features currently available on Teslas with first-generation autopilot hardware, including some standard safety features such as automatic emergency braking, collision warning, lane holding, and active cruise control.
Oh.
Which seems like quite a chunk of the whole thing that...
That seems like the pretty fundamental stuff.
I know autopilot, is it 8 now, has changed the way that it does things in the human interface bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that people cannot climb into the back of their car and take films and go, oh, it said autopilot, so therefore it means it drives itself. That can't happen anymore. You have to be holding the steering wheel. If you do release the steering wheel over a set time and ignore warnings 3 times, the autopilot feature will shut off until you pull over, put it in park, and then you can re-engage it. So from that side of things, there cannot be misunderstandings that there have previously been, which we have pointed out.
I listened to an interview. There was I got a Daily Tech News show earlier on when I was driving earlier on today, and there was quite an interesting discussion between Veronica Belmont and Tom Merritt about this and about the use of the autopilot name. It's kind of what we covered last week, actually. I was catching up on the back episode. And there was an interesting point where Tom was arguing that they should change the name because people are stupid and they take in general, collectively people are stupid, and they take auto...
As a species.
And I should know, I am one. And they take autopilot to mean something that you can completely leave. But Veronica was going, well, no, it's because, look, they've built all this stuff in, and people shouldn't, by the time people are breaking and undoing all that you've just said, Andrew, then really, there's nothing more Tesla can do. And Tom's counter-argument was, yes, but people are still stupid, and it's still called autopilot, and that will still lead people to believe that it can do everything on its own, because that's what we think of when we use phrases like, he was on autopilot, he was... wasn't paying attention.
Exactly.
There. So it was very interesting in a slightly different time.
I've heard plenty of arguments where people have said, the dictionary definition is this. And he's going, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. However, a human being
understands,
perceives it as this. Doesn't matter what your dictionary says, it perceives it as this. So that is actually the literal translation of it. So forget that. Don't hide behind semantics, understand what's going on, understand the human psyche, and understand if there is an opportunity for us to misinterpret, for us to act silly, for us to endanger ourselves and others, we will do that. So we have to eliminate that as much as possible.
But anyway, sorry, that was...
change the name. But that was just to change the name. That's all that needed to happen. But they are changing the technology and keeping the name. So therefore, even if you are being daft and being a typical human... the car will stop. So, I would never expect Tesla to change the name.
No, I don't think so. I think that would be
But I think this is a way around the problem, which is fine. That is going to remove the problem because people cannot get in the back of the car.
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
But still with
Tesla. Still with Tesla was another one slipped in. About the
more fine print
around the full self-driving capability, which may or may not come at some point. And according to this Ars Technica article, sorry, how do I put this? How do I word this? According to Ars Technica, on Tesla's website, there is a new section that describes a full self-driving capability, which will cost you $3,000 at the time of purchase, or $4,000 later, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. There is a bit in the small print around that, which says, please note that using a self-driving Tesla for car sharing and ride-hailing for friends and family is fine. But doing so for revenue purposes will only be permissible on the Tesla network, details of which will be released next year. So, yeah. Basically, yay!
You're not going to be picked up by an Uber.
Yeah.
An Uber
you're not going to you're not going to get an Uber Tesla. You're not going to get a Lyft Tesla.
On autopilot.
It's, yeah. You're going to get a Tesla by summoning a Tesla from their own ride hailing service, which they're saying next year. That's next year, but that allows for level 5 autonomy, so they obviously feel that they're going to be able to get level 5 autonomy next year.
Well, he also claimed in that whole
master plan
release of information and follow-up call afterwards with journalists and investors that they're going to do coast to coast. By the end of
next year, yes, the full LA to New York to LA.
I can't remember which one it was, but I know
Well,
it's coast to coast, so.
it's normally New York to LA in Cannonball style. Apart from the year, of course, the Cannonball ticket. That's nerd level 5. Never mind self-driving. No, I can't see it now. So yeah, so there's another bit. So you basically won't get a self-driven Tesla picking you up from the side of the road if you summon.
Well, now we are on to the last bit of Tesla news, because it was a packed event, considering they weren't really saying very much. They still managed to say quite a lot.
There was an awful lot was said. Yes.
Yes.
Many words were used.
Yes. Some of them together. There was a Q&A afterwards, which I just mentioned, with reporters. And Mr. Musk, who is not one for holding back on his views, decided to have a little bit of a pop at the press, because he feels that there is an undue amount of attention paid to when a Tesla crashes compared to the, as he says, 1.2 million people that die every year in manual crashes.
Manual crashes, sorry.
Yes.
And that is a quote, crashes. Yeah, isn't it? Yes, that's a direct quote, a manual crash.
Because, and I'm now going to quote something he said, because, and you really need to think carefully about this, because if, in writing some article that's negative, you effectively dissuade someone from using an autonomous vehicle, you're killing people. Now that is quite emotional, and that is guaranteed to put the backs up of anyone that writes anything about Tesla in a non-complete fanboy way. Now there's a article where Jalopnik didn't take too kindly to this comment. I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah. No, they didn't. And I'm
not really disagreeing with much of what they've written.
Yeah, because sometimes Jalopnik articles can go a bit silly, but this one doesn't, I don't think.
No. And I think it's worth reading, because I think this sort of statement keeps the whole, if you're not supporting Tesla 100%, then you're against them, feeling that I've got at the moment on the internet. There's an awful lot that you're not. If you're not singing the praises, then you are anti-Tesla, which is not always the case. But people need to be questioned, and people need to be held accountable, and people and companies need to justify what they're doing to the reporters who are asking on behalf of consumers. Reporters are there mainly to try and help keep the consumer informed, particularly in the car industry, I feel. So it is important that questions are asked, particularly if there is such fanfare being made about particular aspects of a vehicle. And those aspects are connected in some way, whether it is their fault or not, but they are connected in some way with something, with an incident, then people need to be aware. It would, I don't want to go harping on more than we have for 20 minutes or whatever we've been doing about Tesla, but I think it's incorrect of Musk to call out the press about reporting on autopilot crashes.
Yeah, I agree. Well, yeah.
Shall we take a breath, Alan?
Yes, let's take a breath. I was going to say something else, but no. Let's take a breath and let's remind you why we're all here today. No, let's not. This is the point where I get down on my knees and I grovel to you and ask you, our dear listeners, if you could please, via the podcasting platform of your choice, leave us a rating, and even better, if you can leave us a review, that would be fantastic. Naturally, as I say every single week, the most powerful and popular. No, I don't say that every week. What I say is the most popular and powerful podcasting platform of all is iTunes. So if possible, you could leave a 5-star rating and a review. That would be fab, because it is hugely influential. It only takes a few moments. It means a lot to us. It makes us more visible to potential new listeners, and in turn, the more listeners we have, the more influence we have with some of the vehicular companies out there to help bring you more and better content. The rating means a lot, so thanks very much. If you've already rated us, left a review, and people have, there's at least one new one this week, so thank you so much.
To Lobster Direct.
Lobster Diecast it is. Can you at least get the name
right?
Direct. Yes, Lobster Diecast. Thank you.
I'm so busy, I wanted to say well done. I wanted to say thank you so much that I've fluffed the name.
So should you wish to buy diecast vehicles on the internet, then Lobster Diecast is who you want to search for. And he's also on Twitter. Very good, very interesting. But if you have if you've already left a rating and a review, please don't forget to tell your friends and spread the word. And listen to Motoring Podcast. It really is great. So thank you so much. That went a little bit waffly. Sorry. Moving on, though. There is
There's a new company in town.
Well, they are sort of a new company, and they're also sort of not a new company, and that's Link.
There's a new brand.
Yeah. So Link and Co. That's LYNK and Co. And they are a new offshoot of Geely. So Geely, you have probably heard of. They are a big Chinese multinational, and the reason that you've probably heard of them, car folks, is that they own Volvo and the London Taxi Company. Okay?
And they seem to have done a fantastic job with both by leaving them alone.
Yes, well, they do seem to be very good at just saying, okay, we're going to invest, we're going to step back, now get on with it. And I can't say as much about London Taxi Company, because let's face it, not many of us have noticed a huge evolution in their rattly diesel products. But Volvo, on the other hand, does seem to be flourishing quite nicely. So they're also doing something right. Anyhow, they have decided they want to launch a new brand. And they want that brand called Link & Co. And so last week they unveiled the very first model, which is called the Link & Co. 01, which makes a lot of sense for your first model. And it is a sort of compact SUV that is based on the same platform as the Volvo V40, Volvo... yeah. Is there an S40,
S40
saloon as well? I can't think what an S40 saloon looks like.
It's yes.
It might be a fourth one. Anyway, so it's based on the same platform as the Volvo V40. That's the Volvo's compact modular architecture there. So how's it powered? What is it? At the minute, it's all about... it's basically Volvo engines right now, which makes a lot of sense. If you own Volvo, you already make a whole range of engines. Why go off and try and build some more or buy them in from somewhere else? So it's going to be a bunch of... The information is very vague around this, okay? So it's not just me being particularly vague. It's 3 and 4 cylinder engines, probably petrol in the first place anyway, and mostly through twin clutch or manual, possibly.
There's talks of diesel.
There will probably be electrification, because what they're really trying to be big on in this is connectivity. Calm yourself. They're trying to be a new car company, so they have no particular history that they have to. I was going to say link to. Sorry.
Well, they've got no baggage.
They've got no baggage, so they can start off and they can go straight into this by having as much tech as they want, because that's the future, and they're new and they're futuristic. And of course, later on they dial it back. The renderings that are available so far show big screen in the middle of the dash, as I'm sure you can imagine. And that's going to be.
There's a lot of Volvo switchgear and Volvo.
Certainly in the rendering,
which is no bad.
They would be crazy to do otherwise.
No, and Volvo's touchscreen gets a lot of praise. It is. I mean, as we found ourselves in the S90, it is gorgeously big, and incredibly clear, which is a wonderful thing to see.
The renderings here, you'll notice, actually have a landscape instead of a portrait. So more conventional, really, to have a landscape rather than portrait set up for that. But it's pretty interesting. The tech around it isn't just going to be managed in-house, but isn't just going to be developed in-house by Geely, which might make you think, that might be a little bit weird. But they've been working in conjunction with Ericsson, in conjunction with Microsoft, and also the Chinese e-commerce site, which I haven't used for a long, long time when it was purely B2B, but it isn't anymore, Alibaba, which if you listen to tech podcasts, it comes up all the time because they are buying, expanding, all sorts of things. And they're looking to explore a whole new digital customer infrastructure for the car industry. So I don't know if that means it's actually
they're basically
sold.
talking about a different way of buying, different ownership models. Subscription based. You pay a fee and you then you can call upon a car X number of times a month, that sort of thing, which is very interesting, and particularly if you live in an urban area.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff.
I mean, as with all these ride sharing and these new ideas when it comes to owning a car and all this, they really do make a lot of sense if you're in urban areas, which obviously, as we know, more and more of the world's population is going into urban areas, which are going to become, they're going to become mega cities, aren't they? And stuff. I mean, you could argue the toss that London already is a mega city, for example. The number of people and how vast an area it covers. So you can see some sense to this. And plus, people are now more used to a subscription type purchasing philosophy. If you look at things like Netflix and Spotify and iTunes and things like that, so many people are doing it that way rather than buying one-offs. Or so and was it 80% of cars are bought on
a lease or age?
On a lease, or for us now. So it's actually not much of a change for us. It just needs to be worded in such a way that the consumer appreciates that it's not really a change.
But they're talking, yes, exactly. It's interesting, actually, because according to this, and it's motoring research that we use as research as background, and there will, of course, be a link in the show notes, as everyone's aware that there normally is now. But they're actually saying that they understand that people aren't completely ready for the whole just use the car that's there set up yet. People still need to. We still psychologically need to feel that we're doing some kind of ownership there. What's interesting is they're looking to do it and to sell via manufacturer-owned showrooms. So Tesla style,
or
online. Which is interesting.
And there's no negotiation. The price is the price.
That was the other bit I was going to say is that it's fixed price. And they reckon that they can save a lot of money. And I noticed that when it comes to the prices, supposedly you can be looking at them to start for about £16,000 if you want to buy one.
And that's not... and that's... if you're basing it on a Volvo and you're using similar materials and stuff like that, that's not a bad price. I mean, we've ignored the elephant in the room.
We're about to come on to that.
Are we? Good.
I was going to come on to that, which is what I haven't said. I've said all the interesting stuff, but I haven't said what it looks like. And it's kind of weird because it was supposedly designed in Sweden. Yeah,
Yes.
in Sweden. And in Gothenburg. And it's worth remembering actually that Geely also have a setup in the West Midlands, but that's probably a leftover from London Tech Company. Now that I think about it. It's a bit odd. I'm going to be more polite than Andrew, no doubt. So let me try and explain what it looks like.
Well, you've done design.
I've done design. So in profile, it looks a lot like
three different cars.
It does look a bit like three different cars. It looks a lot like a Porsche Cayenne, Mark 1 Cayenne from the side. Okay?
At the front, absolutely.
And then at the front, if you look at the square on, if you look at this motoring research article, then there's quite a lot of decent pictures there. If you look at it square on, it's got this kind of weird square grille underneath. It's sort of in the middle, but then it's as if it's got a Ferrari 458 bonnet and lights up at the top. It's a sort of mounted Nissan Juke crocodile light style.
Yeah, they're in portrait. They're not landscape, as it were. And they go up the wings, which I don't mind that sort of particular look.
It's the squareness of the grille underneath.
The combination of it all together, because it looks a little bit like a Camaro grille.
It does, yeah. And then the back looks a lot like a Jeep Grand Cherokee. So it's a bit strange. Now, people are saying really nice things about the styling. So I don't know if it's these renderings.
This reiterates the thing I've mentioned on Twitter a few times, which has been received well, and we've discussed trying to make it happen, but we need to get some designers on and have a round table, because I don't get it.
That's general. That's not specific to this, folks. But to be honest, I have trouble getting this one as well, because it does...
Because I've seen quite a few of the people that we'd like to approach to get on saying very positive things about this car. And I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to be facetious or anything. I really think there's three separate cars. There's the front, there's the middle, and there's the back. And they've been...
The shut lines don't help.
They've been shoved together. I mean, that emphasises it for me. And I need someone to help explain it to me why they feel it is a good look. Because I'm missing what it is. I'm not a fan of the look. I think I'd probably come to be used to it in time.
I think the bottom one in the bottom, if you do follow the link to the motoring research site, the bottom picture, which looks like a rendering to me rather than an actual photograph.
The grey,
the grey one looks much
grey.
better than the white one with the red bits further up.
Yes, the transition between the sections of the car is much smoother in the darker colour, which my confirmation bias goes out. Why I see white is wrong.
Knew that was coming. I'm basically holding a countdown here to that happening.
I held off.
I know, you've done really well.
It's the pills.
So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see, because this is the first vehicle in a range, I imagine. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the 2 and the 3, and if that actually turns into a family resemblance, which becomes more understandable than the single element that we're seeing right at the moment. It might be that if you see a sports car, in a hatchback or and an SUV and something else, then there will be a coherence between it, and you go, that makes sense. It now looks like a range. So it may have been designed as part of a range, but when we're only seeing one bit, and therefore we don't understand it yet because we're not seeing the big picture. As I say, I studied design, so I sometimes get these things, but I think I'd like some help on this one.
Yeah, I'm fascinated actually to know, and not only whether the design is a family resemblance, but if consumers do adopt the potential ownership models or financing models, whatever we're going to call it, but also if they do stick with a fixed price, and that fixed price is actually competitive.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happened in the past.
Because I can see an awful lot of mainstream manufacturers in the short term will happily slash their prices just to get rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, that happened to Daewoo in the UK. That happened to a number of things. People have come along and promised that. And it's something we discussed last week about Citroën as well. It was tricky. How will they manage to stick with it or not?
It's manufacturers trying to grasp selling directly via the web, because that is becoming more and more of a thing, and it is less of a thing that people go to a showroom now, even to try a car out.
Yeah.
So how many people just tick the box in their, the company car options and go, yeah, I'll have that one. I need these 5 options, which means I'm still under my limit. That's great. Go. I'll get it when it arrives. How many of those people actually go and bother to try out? Not many.
No, I think that's true.
Not many will then go to a dealer and say, "Oh, I'm thinking about trying this Insignia. Can I have a test drive, please?"
Yeah, exactly. And then the dealer goes, "Are you going to buy it from us, or is it a company car, sir? Very sorry, I need to go through your lease company." I've seen that happen before in dealerships.
Yeah, which
is understandable. It's like, well, we can waste a lot of time with you, but we're never going to get anything back, which is very tricky for them. And so I guess it's manufacturing and sort all that stuff out. I mean, my father bizarrely.
It'll be interesting to see how this all works.
Yeah, I mean, my father bizarrely has actually been trying cars this time. Although the new 5 Series is giving a bit of an issue. He's now on a
Has he tried the Volvo yet?
Yeah. He had a short go at the Volvo, but I don't know if I'm going to pick it. We'll see. So, next up.
Should we move on?
And it's good, because I've not had a chance to listen to this yet.
Well, I'm up to episode 3 of 4 of a new podcast I've come across called Autonocast, and there will be a link to their iTunes page that you can subscribe to if you do via iTunes, and also their website, on which I think there's other options to get hold of them via different mediums. I know they're on SoundCloud as well. That's where they started.
There's not a lot. The website is hugely minimal at the minute. I know that they're working on it. I think this is very much a side project for Alex Roy, for Ed Niedermeyer, and for Damon. And I really am very sorry. I'm trying to find his surname. For Damon Lavrink, whose idea I think it was to get Alex and Ed to talk to each other on a Fire Up podcast, because they are on either ends of the spectrum when it comes to discussing, or you think they are on either ends of the spectrum when it comes to talking about transport technology, is the way they've called their podcast. And now I've listened to 3 episodes. I think that's very accurate. Obviously, Tesla and autonomous cars comes up a lot, and that has been the main theme of the first 3 shows that I've listened to. And I know in the 4th one, again, Tesla features heavily, because that's just after the announcement last week that we've just discussed. But they go on to talk about Lynk & Co as well. So we need to get Ed on at some point.
Yes, he is definitely on my list for review, but I think he would be very interesting to have on as a special edition for us when we are in a position to talk about autonomous cars, stroke Tesla, stroke
all that kind of stuff,
that sort of thing. Because he does an awful lot of research.
Yeah, he doesn't just make stuff up.
And investigative journalism, actually, into these things. So he's the thing is, he can come across or be perceived to be anti-tech and anti-Tesla, but he's not. He's actually pro, but he wants it done right. And feel, which I think is a...
if you and he are on the same podcast, is it going to be a bit of a love-in?
I think there might be. There might be.
You do that one yourself, mate.
Possibly,
it makes me squirm.
Possibly one-way bromance.
Should we move on from this now? It's creeping me out.
But it is actually a really good an interesting podcast where they go into details that we who are not as invested or as have not spent as much time investigating these things may not appreciate. So if you are remotely interested in transport technology, go and have a listen. I thoroughly recommend it. It's really, really good stuff.
So just whilst we're on air and whilst we're recording, I have picked up my phone. I have pressed podcasts. I have pressed search.
Yes.
Into the search box, I'm typing AUTONOCAST. Now, I should point out at that point, you can type in motoring podcast or rear view, okay, and perform a similar activity with them. I'm going to press search. Autonocast comes up under podcast. I'm going to press it and hit subscribe.
Good.
That is the length of time it takes to subscribe to a podcast, folks. There you go. Yep. For those of you who haven't yet.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Because I know we've mentioned in the past that we've sometimes not enjoyed Alex Roy's tweets.
Yeah, I don't think he gets the whole Alex Roy-ness over in 140 characters, though, because I love his videos, I like his articles, it's just when he tweets, he can be a bit annoying.
Yes, the podcast has given me a fresh appreciation of him. Fantastic. And he is a very intelligent man, although I do not always agree with what he says. He's an intelligent man who puts his point across very well.
Yeah.
They all do.
I agree with that. God.
Let's move on.
If only we were the same.
Yes.
Winding back...
we can aim.
Yeah, it's something to aspire to. Winding back from that level of automotive technology is something that I think we mentioned it briefly last week, and is in the new Citroen C3 there is a built-in dash cam which lets you record and sort of snap to an extent pictures of it's listed here in this article on Petrol Blog by Gavin, big surname, as Pokemon Go for car geeks. But it is, you can actually record your car spots using this and tweet them. And I wish I'd had this today because I drove past. I overtook lots. I overtook a Peugeot. Oh no! What number was it? Was it 301? It was a saloon version of the current 308, which was unusual, and it was white and it was bogging. But yeah, so
ooh, sounds awful.
Oh, it was Czech number plate, so not sold in the UK. But yeah, I spotted that today, and I was like, oh, I wish I could take a picture of this hatchback to tweet and become king of the internet. And I couldn't because I wasn't driving a Citroen C3. But yes.
No, this for this exact reason was the only reason I thought Google Glass made absolute sense.
This, my friend, is why I bought a dash cam. Not for any other reason, not to catch people being poor drivers or any of these things, but really because I wanted to be able to kind of click the button on the side of it and take a picture of a Nissan, I can't think, Stagia or whatever. That's not the one I was thinking of. Nissan Quest, actually, I was thinking of. And all sorts of weird things that I spot on the road and can go, oh, I saw this today, but I didn't get a picture because I'm a law-abiding citizen and I don't prat with my smartphone whilst I'm driving.
No, I've tried using Sprog One to help me, and I got a fantastic picture of the inside of the pillar and back of the headrest. Which was a shame because he was actually looking at the vehicle that I was asking him to take a picture of
at the time. But
it's
a little more training. I know that Matt Hubbard.
By training, you mean being shouted at?
Yeah, Matt Hubbard speed
because that will help everything.
Yes, I'm sure. The Speed Monkey has trained his number one Sprog to take pictures of passing interesting cars. So it's only a matter of time. I think you just have to nurture correctly.
Okay. I'll put more rusty nails in the end of the stick.
Oh, it's a Volvo 460. Sorry, I'm trying to look through some of the little gallery of stuff that Gav himself managed to gather. But by all means, go to the show notes, follow the link. It's a cracker.
Yes, is it another excellent petrol blog article.
If you think that sounds dull, read it when Gav writes it, because it's far more interesting than me talking about it, because I don't want to give away actually what he's written in the article.
No, it's excellent. List of the week time.
It's been a while.
Well, there was another list, but I have thrown that list out.
It was
because
rubbish.
I thought it was an award list, and I disagreed with A, the categories, and B, the winners. So I've moved on to a more pleasing list.
It wasn't very interesting either.
No,
Sorry,
it should have been.
Really
it should have been. It should have been fantastic, but it wasn't. It was awful. But moving on to a excellent list. And once again, friend of the show, Andrew Brady and Motoring Research. Sorry, they've featured quite a bit today. Not that that's a problem, because they put out good stuff. But this one is best used cars for less than £1,000. Now, this is right up our alley, I think.
Can I just say that this is well angled towards our listenership? Sorry, I'm going to distract you from this for a minute. But Instagram, just about every day, not today yet because I've been busy. I Instagram something, and I can spend ages framing nice pictures, going back to my archives, picking out fine modern cars, and they get a fair number of likes, quite a happy number of likes. I'm happy. Yesterday, a brown Rover SD1, dear listeners and followers.
Bits of a brown Rover.
It wasn't even a complete brown Rover SD1. Parked in a field. I mean, it was an immaculate SD1, but it's still an SD1. Under 3 hours to get 100. Are you all insane? I don't want to abuse our listeners and followers on air.
God.
But goodness me, people.
You've moved on from alienating and offending small portions of our listenership to all of them. Well done, Alan.
I'm amazed how that I did. I'm slightly upset because yesterday was a case of, I don't have any pictures. Everybody's bored of pictures of Civics. Right, let's go, I'll just pick that one. So me just going on, just pick that one. It's an alright picture. It's actually quite a nice car. It's a V8 3500. And I thought, but I just wasn't expecting that. And the other one that's got all the likes is half of a Peugeot 505 GTI. Because I didn't frame the picture in the Peugeot Museum for Instagram. So I'm just amazed by that. Sorry. We're doing all right for time so far, and sorry.
Yeah, we haven't hit 2 hours yet.
Interrupt. Anyway, I'll shut up for a minute.
Right, well, this is an interesting list, of which most of it I disagree with violently, but I still think it's an interesting list. Particularly if you've listened to Rear View with Andrew on it. So I will have a link to that in the showroom. Show notes, even showroom. Show notes. But of the cars here, I will go through. Ford Fusion.
Bleh, had ones of rental ones. Ugh.
Well, to be fair, he does say, bear with us on this one. But it's a no from me.
Mm-hmm.
The Mark 1 Zara Picasso, no, absolutely
well, you can't tell if it's coming or going. And I know that shouldn't really matter under £1,000. But awful. The people who drive them out, it's a certain... They tend to have those and tattoos. And it's people who basically have just that little bit more class than an LDV van driver.
Mm. The G-Wiz. Well, no. Okay, yes. He acknowledges the faults, but does have a very specific use case that it might be worth.
Just walk.
So for just under £1,000, it might be a way of getting around London. And now we come to the first car that I do want, and I want a lot, and that's a Fiat Panda.
They're lovely.
Second generation.
Mm-hmm. And that's a nice one. The picture there it's got the roof rails and everything. As I say, I had the 100 HP one of those. Cracked on.
Well,
I'm convinced.
I am convinced the 4x4 version will be all the car nearly everybody in this country needs.
I agree. They're very popular. The current generation is very popular with driving schools around here. I think it's because it's almost impossible to curb the wheels.
Well, if I lived in the countryside, I would have a Panda 4x4
Mm-hmm.
as the car that did all the little shuttle runs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, they're
Absolutely.
cool. And to get one for less than £1,000, I'm amazed. Just not 4x4, but a Panda of that generation for less than £1,000.
Only 42,000 miles as well.
That's a steal. It'll be sold by now.
It's only a short MOT, but even so. And moving on, the Chevrolet Matiz.
I'm sorry, £1,000 is £100 is too much for one of those. Sad.
Alan's, and then we're going to move on to Alan's best and worst car, all wrapped up in one. Mazda RX-8. If it's a grand, oh dear, no one's loved that.
If it's a grand, what you do is the first thing you do is you go to a specialist and you get.
You were going to buy
but it is £515 a year. 1,500. It is £515 a year in road tax. So let's just remember that.
Astra convertible, never.
I like those. I've always thought they were really good, quite good looking. Designed and built by Bertone in Italy. They have a certain level of class. It's not going to be a handling car. I really like that generation. None of the others, but that generation with the soft top. I've always thought that was a good looking car. I'm sorry, I know that you disagree with me completely, but I quite like them.
I'm still haunted by my ownership of two Vauxhalls, so that's probably tainting my opinion.
Remember that these will have been almost hand-built, by Italians. Okay, moving on.
A Ford Mondeo, which makes a lot of sense if you need to munch miles, have something big, something reasonably affordable to fix. I can understand that. The Mitsubishi Lancer, however, not an Evo.
I have, yes.
No.
Right, anyway, that's what you say.
Another no is the Peugeot 1007.
They always remind me of a Portaloo. They are just
I just remember the Top Gear episode where it seemed to take a decade for the door to open so the mums could get in.
There's so no, my family has a house in France, and the architect there who did all this project management things whenever we were doing work on it. She was very youngish French lady, and she would appear at the time in one of these when they were new, and it was red one that she had, and she'd turn up, but she could somehow make it almost look cool, but it still looked like a bit of an invalid carriage. So this thing arrived, and the door went, and was eventually open. And then and Veronique would step out, and she'd say hello to everyone, and by then she'd have pressed the button, and by the time she'd said hello to everyone, the door's still going back in again. It's the most ridiculous vehicle. The theory's great, the implementation sucks. Anyway,
I mean, why?
At least it's interesting.
When you could, well, yeah, but if you want something interesting, why not buy a Nissan Cube or something like that?
She subsequently replaced it with a Qashqai, by the way.
Right, okay. Moving on, the Chevrolet Lacetti. Lacetti.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
Talking of awful, City Rover. Just garbage.
When I was in India, I did some work in India a few years ago now, and the Tata Indica was relatively new. I said this on Twitter the other day. Tata Indica was relatively new, and so of course I was striking up. I had a car and drive, which sounds really, really glamorous. It makes you think like a Mercedes or something. No, it was a 4-door Suzuki Swift. And I was asking, what about the Tata? What about these? And even over there, the Tata Indigo was thought of as a pretty substandard car that was going to fall to bits in a minute. The City Rover did not change my feeling on that. Horrible. Again, it fits into the same category as the Matiz. He's rather better off walking.
It was. It was beyond the last hope.
Yeah, totally.
The Proton Savvy, which I quite like the look of.
Quite like.
It's got a little kink in the
door, and the back's interesting and stuff. And
yeah.
I can. Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything about Lotus or anything like that, but no.
But it's completely different.
It looks a little bit interesting.
Yes, somebody's made an effort. Sorry, there you go. That's what completely missing from the City Rover and the Lacetti and the Lancer is that at least on the Proton Savvy, it has a silly name, but somebody's made an effort. I quite like it.
Right, and I think... Oh, no, we're not in the last of the list, actually.
No.
But the MGZS, no.
It is Peter Stevens styling. You're either, what else are you in for £1,000 in Peter Stevens styling? You're in, you're not going to get a Lotus Esprit for that much. You're not going to get a McLaren F1 for that much. MGZS, I like them. I would suppose there's the V6 one. Is an absolute cracker. I see that the neighbours across the road from me have finally got rid of their ZR, which with the duct tape front wing, it's been replaced by something far less interesting. I like them. Vauxhall Corsa, meh. Ford car, meh. Ford sport car.
Well, the Ford car is at least the good-looking Ford car.
If you can look past the rust in them. They're all knackered now.
On the route to drop off the Sproglets at school, there is a Ford car parked outside a garage in blue, metallic blue, which looks fantastic. And then there's a Puma next to it, which I've had glances at, and the arches appear to be in one piece.
Oh, wow.
And not bubbling.
Well done, because that's more than the car normally manages. I do like the sport car, though. I've always liked the sport car. Again, this is a terrible piece of confessions.
You're not even drinking tonight.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
Mazda 6, I'd have one in a heartbeat.
Yeah, lovely cars. Skoda Fabia, perfectly respectable vehicle. Vauxhall Astra.
No, never.
Ford Focus. Anything you'd like to confess?
No, not interested. Not interested. I had one. It's competent.
Nissan Micra.
Awful, ugly, dreadful thing.
This is a really long list, mate. Citroen C4. Actually, I discovered something. I discovered that when you're in Wales the weekend, what you do is you find a local, and a local is very often driving a diesel Citroen C4 or equivalent, and that is the best way to get around a place because they know where they're going. So I discovered that the secret was to stick to the back of a diesel-powered PSA vehicle that was generally covered in a bit of crud and had a Welsh Dragon on the back.
You weren't actually following the Mrs. Crack Windscreen tactic of they look like they know where they're going, I'll follow them, were you?
It wasn't quite that, no. It was, they look like they know what they're doing, I'll stick to them. Just slightly different. You can tell. No, but you know what I mean. You can tell. There's the way a car sits on the road and is being driven and is being positioned, and how you can tell from the little puff of diesel smoke, of particulate smoke, which is killing 600,000 people a year globally, that they would shift down before the corner. Because they knew that the sight lines were good enough after the bend that they could nail it. And I also knew that whatever it is that they were doing to nail it, I could be a bit further back from them. I could out-nail them and therefore end up neatly behind once we had passed said truck, tractor, you name whatever the obstacle's going to be. As well as that, I also had a buffer zone between myself and any obstacles that were coming up, so they would reach them first, and I would have the warning sign of their brake lights. Hopefully. It worked. But one of the ones was a Citroen C4 VTR Plus, which I followed for a good few miles. And he was, yes, he understood the road and was driving in a sensible, non-jerkish manner.
Unlike you.
Yeah, probably.
Last on the list, Volkswagen Polo.
Yeah, great. Totally competent.
Which makes...
Bit like owning a washing machine.
Oh, no.
What?
We're going to get letters.
Who from? Oh, Richard. That was a very dull one. It's not like Richard's GTO, which is lovely. Oh,
it's
no.
too late.
Oh, no. He's got my phone number and everything.
Yeah. Right, let's move on quickly.
Finally, if none of those suit you, I'm going to keep on going.
For less than 1,000.
Yes, if none of those for less than £1,000 suits you, if you have a bit more in your bank account, then
how much more, Alan?
About £19,000 more is a Bentley Continental GT. So yeah, instead of, we were talking about stuff like the Matiz, which I think came with the largest engine it came with is still sub a litre. Instead of that, you could have a 6-litre twin-turbo W12 engined Bentley Continental GT parked in your driveway instead.
Now that does sound quite attractive. Because if we remember old New Top Gear, just before it all went Wahoonie shaped,
yeah,
they were in the Northern Territories,
yeah,
which I think was one of their better road trips of the later series.
Really good ones when they got it right.
Yeah, and they were right in what they said that the Bentley has got better with age. Mm-hmm. That the whole footballers plaything has worn off. That's gone away now.
Not really.
Well, no, as in that's not what you associate them with as much.
No,
or I don't, because I see them. There's a couple round near me. Not obviously people passing through somewhere, but I look at them and I go, actually, that's quite a handsome car. It's not fantastically good looking, but I think it's a handsome car.
All right.
And it can make a good noise.
Well, you're saying they get better with age. The trouble is that for your 20-something grand, you're getting one of the very first ones.
Hmm.
So, it's still a little bit quickly around the edges. I mean, the biggest issue of all is the fact that any set of repairs to this is an almost 200-mile-an-hour car. 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. And
Ding.
And, anything that you do to it is going to cost an arm and a leg.
You have
Possibly
to go with your eyes
multiple.
wide open.
Oh, totally. And I think even going in with your eyes wide open, you could be. Unless you get a really
your
good
checkbook.
one. Yeah. But there is one for sale for about 19,000 just up the road from me, about 20 miles away. No, I'm not going to go look at it. But yeah, that would be a brave person who does it. But I actually would admire their bravery, preferably from afar. I would stand and admire their bravery and think that is jolly good. I would applaud it. That is jolly good. You are more man than I. When it comes to that. Anyway, if you are interested and would like to see a buyer's guide, there is one on Autocar. Link, as ever, in the show notes.
And that is that.
And that is that. That's us pretty much.
I felt it was important. It's been a while since we put any little fun links in.
Yes, quite.
And I thought, because the news has been quite serious and sometimes quite depressing lately,
Mm-hmm.
and we've not been as prolific with our fun links as I hope we will be in the future. So it'd be interesting to hear whether people actually enjoy having these things like the petrol blog link dropped in and the if we come across something we recommend other people to listen to or watch or something like that, it'd be interesting to know if that sort of thing is, if you, the listener, find that valuable at all. So if you could let us know,
that would be great. Yep, and of course you can let us know. You can let us know your thoughts via @MotoringPodcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Please don't forget to leave that review and rating in iTunes or your podcast app of choice. It really does matter. Andrew, how best to get in touch with you?
The best way is via Twitter. If you search for Crack Windscreen, you will find me. And how about if people want to get in touch with you personally?
As usual, Twitter works for me too, @AJPBradley. We'll be back next week. Until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clews.
And safe motoring.